Welcome back to Scout Report, where we give you the statistical breakdown behind European football's biggest talking points. Today we're going to take a look at one of the key developments in the last 20 years of the sport. For large periods of football history, the right back and left back positions were seen as the most unglamorous on the field, with the least amount of technical ability required to occupy them. The best defenders would be placed at centre-back, the best ball players in central midfield, and the top creators and dribblers would generally find themselves on the wing. As Jamie Carragher once said, no one wants to grow up to be Gary Neville. But now, more so than ever before, they are integral to how Europe's top teams operate in attack as well as in defence. For years it was Dani Alves, not Iniesta, Pedro or Neymar, who was Lionel Messi's main collaborator at Barcelona, and when he left in 2016, that mantle fell to Jordi Alba. It's why Real Madrid was so quick to sign Ferland Mendy when Marcelo reached the wrong side of 30 last summer, and why, despite spending around £200 million on fullbacks since arriving at Man City in 2016, Pep Guardiola still hasn't settled on his preferred long-term pairing. And in 2018-19, for the first time ever, the Premier League's assist charts featured two fullbacks in the top 5, a feat that looks set to be repeated this year, such as the dominance of Trent Alexander-Arnold and Andy Robertson in Jurgen Klopp's system at Liverpool. These are just a few examples of how prevalent left backs and right backs are in today's game, but this shift didn't happen overnight. Let's start at the beginning. Origins. While it's easy to view the attacking fullback as a purely modern phenomenon, the concept can be traced back to the middle of the 20th century. Perhaps the best example is Giacinto Facchetti. The Italian left-back was one of the key elements in Helenio Herrera's great Inter Milan side of the 1960s, which won 3 Serie A titles and 2 consecutive European Cups with the Argentinian coach at the helm. Ironically, Fachetti's role as an attacking fullback was as part of Herrera's famously defensive Catenaccio system. They would generally line up in a 5-3-2, which included captain Armando Pichi sitting as the sweeper behind the main back four. But when the team regained possession, Facchetti was instructed to bomb down the wing to aid the counter-attack, often finding space in the final third to create chances and shoot. While assist numbers weren't recorded back then, the left-back amassed 75 goals in 629 appearances for the Nerazzurri during his career, with 40 of those coming between 1965 and 1970. Meanwhile, his best return came in the 1965-66 campaign, when he netted 12 times in 38 appearances. But while his pace, skill and eye for goal made him a constant threat going forward, Facchetti was an excellent defender too. The most famous example of this was in Inter's 3-1 victory over a star-studded Real Madrid in the 1964 European Cup final, where he put in a man-of-the-match display, playing more narrow in order to silence a Los Blancos attack featuring Paco Gento, Alfredo Di Stefano and Ferenc Puskás. Other sides from this era which implemented more attack-minded fullbacks included the Brazil national team, whose combination of Djalma and Nilton Santos helped them to glory at the 1958 and 1962 World Cups. Then came Carlos Alberto, who lifted the trophy in 1970 as captain, having scored one of the all-time great goals in a 4-1 rout of Fachetti's Italy in the final. It was around this time that total football was beginning to take hold in the Netherlands too, with Ajax and the national side requiring players in each position to develop their technical game in order to be able to play multiple roles. Right back Wim Serbia and left back Ruud Krol were central figures in the movement, with their combination of pace, tactical flexibility and control on the ball essential to building up play from the back, as well as keeping the opposition at bay by starving them of the ball in Rinus Michel's fluid 4-3-3 system. Along the likes of Johan Cruyff and Piet Keizer, they helped drive Ajax to 3 consecutive European Cups in the early 1970s. This new approach to the fullback role was revolutionary, transforming a position which was previously reserved exclusively for cancelling out opposition wingers into one of the most multifaceted on the field. But it would take some time before clubs and coaches integrated these kind of defenders into their teams en masse. The new wingers. Fast forward to 2020 and covering large swathes of the pitch in order to assist the attack as well as carry out defensive duties is simply what is expected of fullbacks if they want to play for the best sides. And this has gone hand in hand with the rise in fitness levels we've witnessed across the top leagues in the last 20 years, which has in turn seen coaches further develop the implementation of pressing. But let's save that for another video. In the English game, one of the first big advocates for fullbacks operating higher up the pitch was Arsene Wenger. When he arrived at Arsenal in 1996, the Frenchman instructed Lee Dixon and Nigel Winterburn to get forward simultaneously, something which had never occurred under the more defence-minded George Graham. It's no surprise then that Ashley Cole, who showcased attacking prowess from a young age, was a first-team regular by the time he turned 20. However, the Englishman's output pales in comparison with the numbers we've seen from fullbacks more recently. His 4 league assists in the 2003-04 Invincibles campaign was the most he managed in a single season for the Gunners, while his total of 5 for Chelsea in 2011-12 was the most he recorded in a Prem campaign full stop. This is not to diminish Ashley Cole, who is clearly one of the best left-backs of the last 20 years. He learnt his trade when players in his position weren't expected to contribute in the way they are now, and never played in a system where the fullbacks were the main creators. And there has been a significant shift in the last 15 years in particular. Between the 2006-07 and 2012-13 seasons, there was a 35% increase in the number of high-intensity runs made by fullbacks in the Premier League, and a 62% increase in sprint distance. This is despite fullbacks covering more or less the same amount of ground in games, meaning they were spending significantly more time bombing down the wings to join the attack, and significantly less time jogging up and down to hold the defensive line. And there has even been change since then. In 2013-14, wingbacks and fullbacks in the Premier League top 4 were making on average 49.5 sprints per game. In 2016-17, that figure rose to 55.3. And in that same time period, the average distance covered per game rose from 9.5 kilometres to 9.9 kilometres. It's perhaps no surprise that during this time period, Pep Guardiola and Jurgen Klopp entered the English game, as did Antonio Conte, who used wingbacks to such great effect in his title-winning season at Chelsea. And this increase in contribution to attacking play is reflected in the passing stats too. From 2012 to 2017, the proportion of passes completed by fullbacks in the opposition half increased from 55.1% to 64.9%, a significant rise. Meanwhile, the number of dribbles completed per game also increased by 30% during this time. And this change hasn't happened in a vacuum. It is partly the result of the shift in the nature of wingers over the past decade or so. Whereas they were once teams' only source of creativity from out wide, players like Arjen Robben, Gareth Bale and Neymar proved they could be the main outlet for goals too. This is now largely the norm. From Eden Hazard to Marco Reus to Son Heung-min, players who would have been traditionally classed as wingers now operate as wide forwards, cutting inside often to shoot and taking up more central positions to dictate the attack, in doing so allowing the fullbacks to take up the space created on the wing. So in many ways, fullbacks are the new wingers, or at least they take on a lot of the responsibilities wingers used to have. And there is no starker example of this than at Jurgen Klopp's Liverpool. With Mohamed Salah and Sadio Mane both primarily goal scorers, and the midfield far more geared towards winning the ball back than creating, it is up to Trent Alexander-Arnold and Andrew Robertson to lay on the majority of chances from wide. Not only is Alexander-Arnold's 2.6 chances created per 90 by far the best in the Reds squad, it is only beaten by 3 other players in the Premier League. And while Robertson only ranks 4th for key passes at Liverpool with 1.5 a match, that's still more than Roberto Firmino, and when it comes to crossing, there is simply no comparison. The Scottish left-back has completed 20 crosses into the box from open play this term, by far the most at Anfield, and when combined with Trent's output, this totals to 33 for the fullback pairing. In contrast, Mane has completed just 6 crosses this term, while Salah has just 1, the same as Joe Gomez. Meanwhile, the fullbacks also lead the way for passes into the box. Alexander-Arnold has completed 58, while Robertson has completed 48, again dwarfing Mane and Salah on 40 and 33 respectively. So it's little wonder that Trent is Liverpool's top assist maker with 12, a figure only topped by Kevin De Bruyne in the Prem, while Robbo ranks joint second on 7, despite having to do the majority of the defensive work on the left, with 2.9 tackles and interceptions per 90. It's no surprise then that the Scotland captain makes a whopping 19 sprints a match in order to make ground at both ends, a number only bettered in the Prem by Ben Chilwell. Meanwhile, Klopp's side have conceded on average 0.65 goals per game over the last 2 seasons, showing just how good the pair are at fulfilling their attacking responsibilities without the defence suffering. While we haven't had time to look at other exceptional combinations like Alves and Alba at Barcelona, Marcelo and Carvajal at Real Madrid, or even Davies and Pavard at Bayern Munich this season, Liverpool's current system is the outstanding example for how to integrate attacking fullbacks into a team, turning a recent academy graduate and a man who had twice been relegated from the Premier League into two of the best in their position almost overnight. The new midfielders. While that title might feel a bit misleading, it's not totally untrue. Before breaking into the Liverpool first team as a right back, Trent Alexander-Arnold was a central midfielder by trade, and it shows in his performances. As well as leading the Red squad for passes into the box, he also ranks third for passes into the final third with 5.5 per 90, and racks up 7.6 deep progressions a game, meaning he's almost as vital to the side in progressing the ball as Jordan Henderson. This ability to build play from deep is something that was even seen in Giacinto Facchetti, who played in the centre as a libero towards the end of his career in the 1970s. And the prevalence of more able passers among fullbacks these days means managers are able to tweak with the position beyond the ways we've already highlighted. Pep Guardiola is the best example of this. At Bayern Munich, the technical excellence of Philipp Lahm and David Alaba meant that when they attacked, while Robben and Ribéry probed the opposition defence from out wide, the midfielders were also allowed to push up further than normal, with the two fullbacks covering more central areas in preparation for a counter-attack and able to restart build-up once they won back possession. Pep invariably made the most of this during his time at the Allianz, and such was Lahm's ability to dictate play that he converted him into a central midfielder, something which has since happened with his heir Joshua Kimmich. Meanwhile, Alaba was also used sparingly in midfield, the position he took up for Austria at the time, due to his composure in possession. And at Manchester City, the Catalan coach found an unlikely hero in Fabian Delph. Following injury to £52 million signing Benjamin Mendy in 2017, the English midfielder was ushered into left-back for the majority of the season, and was excellent as City reached the historic 100-point mark in the league. Not only was he active in build-up, making 8.8 deep progressions per game, but he was also a reliable defensive shield, clocking up 5.1 tackles and interceptions per 90. Able to shift into the midfield alongside Fernandinho when Pep's side attacked, Delph's role allowed for David Silva and KDB to both operate as number 10s, and opened up more space for Leroy Sané to attack down the left. A crucial cog in what was the most ferocious attacking outfit the Prem has ever seen. So that is why fullbacks are so important in the modern game. Apologies, but we didn't quite have enough time to marvel over Cafu and Roberto Carlos, look at more young stars like Achraf Hakimi, or talk about other unorthodox fullbacks like James Milner and Javier Zanetti. But if you enjoyed this and want to see more videos like this based on the evolution of a position, please let us know in the comments below, and of course don't forget to like and subscribe to Eurofootball Daily if you want to see more great content like this. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.